All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ignite the Tour. My name is Eugene Lin. I'm a program manager on the OneDrive and SharePoint engineering team from Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, Washington. I want to start by thanking all of you for coming out here and joining us at Ignite the Tour. I know it takes work to come out here to the conference, whether you're traveling from out of town or in town to just come see us. And so I really appreciate it. It's an honor to come here and represent the work that the team is doing. And so thank you all for coming out here. A show of hands, how many of you are not from Amsterdam? All right, sweet, cool. It's a really beautiful city, isn't it? It's amazing. Wait, does this sound super loud to you? Is this too loud? Is this okay? Okay, cool. Just sounds loud to me, cool. Anyway, Amsterdam's awesome. Have you all been enjoying the city? Had you a chance to look around and stuff? Cool, all right. So this morning, I actually am staying at a hotel a little bit north of here at the Hyatt Regency. So I rented a bicycle and I rode it down here. I thought that seemed like an Amsterdam thing to do, and the kind of Amsterdam thing that I could put on an expense report, so that seems okay. It's just really, really cool getting to come out here and visit. And so this is, as you know, Ignite the Tour is a lot of content that we have from our Ignite conference in Orlando, kind of compressed into a few presentations. And so I have a lot of demos today. Apologies, I actually have to have paper to remind me of all of the demos I have to do. And so today we're going to be focused on file collaboration in Microsoft 365. So I'm going to focus on OneDrive and shared libraries in SharePoint and Microsoft Teams. So this talk is intended for an intermediate audience that's already familiar with the basics of OneDrive. If you're interested in learning about collaboration beyond files, then I'd suggest that you consider following me to the next talk on architecting teamwork in SharePoint and Teams, where I'll be talking more about collaboration beyond files, and I'll be doing some demos of the integration of Microsoft Teams with OneDrive and SharePoint. So that said, also I'm going to have to walk pretty fast because the auditorium's kind of far from here. So I'll take questions if I can outside, but we might have to be walking in the hallway while I get to the next talk. So today, I'll show you how Microsoft 365 addresses the changing needs of content collaboration by letting you view and edit files from any device, share and work together in real time, organize files and coordinate workflows, and find the files that matter most, all while keeping your files secured and protected. I'm going to go into each of these areas one by one. There are a lot of demos, and so I'm hoping that the majority of them will work so you can see them. It's going to be great. But first, I want to talk about how some of the Microsoft 365 apps and services work together in these scenarios. So all of it is built on top of SharePoint Content Services. This is really important to know as an admin because this is where a lot of the policy configuration happens. As an end user, if you're not familiar with SharePoint, it's okay. It's all built on SharePoint Content Services. That gives us the reliability, the security, the compliance, all of the enterprise class support that you expect from Microsoft. SharePoint Content Services, in turn, powers a whole ton of Microsoft 365 app experiences. Everything from Word, Excel, PowerPoint, to OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams is powered by SharePoint Content Services. Now, of all of that content, in this hour, I'll be talking about files. So in Microsoft 365, every user has an individual library for their files, and every team has a shared library for their files. To get to any of those files, you start in OneDrive, because OneDrive connects you to all of your files across Microsoft 365, whether they're in your library, whether they're in somebody else's library and shared with you, or whether they're in a shared library in one of the teams that you work with. So OneDrive is the Files app. Think of it like a modern-day file explorer, a modern-day Finder. It is the place you go for files. So how is OneDrive related to Teams? Well, let's talk about that. Teams is a hub for teamwork. It's a chat-based workspace that brings together all of the tools that your team needs to get work done in one secure location. Among the many things you can do in Teams, you can talk with individuals in one-on-one chat conversations, and you can talk with your team in team conversations. Well, when you share files in those conversations, in chat conversations, those files get stored in your individual library. And if you share files in a team conversation, those get stored in the Teams shared library. And so as you can see, Teams is the hub for teamwork, and OneDrive connects you to all of your libraries, all of those files, including the files that you see in Teams. And all of it is built on SharePoint Content Services. So that's just a quick look at how these things relate. I'm now going to show you what it looks like in the product. So in OneDrive, your individual library is available right there on the left, in the Files tab, and your shared libraries show up below. In Teams, your individual library is available in the Files tab on the left, and your shared library shows up in the Files tab of each of your channels. And in SharePoint, you can find your shared libraries in each site, typically on a link called Documents or the name of the library. So now, with that, I want to start getting into some demos because there's a lot of stuff to show today. So we're going to start by showing you how you can view and edit files from any device with OneDrive. So I'm going to switch over here, out of presentation mode. Where is my cursor? Here it is. So we're going to start here in the OneDrive website. Here on OneDrive, you can see all of the files that are available to you in Microsoft 365. You can see all of your files and folders here, and you can see on the left, like I said, all of the different teams that you work with. And these teams are there whether you created them in Microsoft Teams, whether you created SharePoint sites, whether you created Outlook groups. All of those files are available here within the OneDrive experience. If you look at the files here, you'll see that there are thumbnails available for all of these files. We support thumbnails for over 300 different content types, and it's always growing. So here, it's really easy for me to find my stuff. I can go ahead and click on one of these files, and in this case, normally I would start with something like an office document, but in this case, this is a 3D file, and you can see that we have a built-in previewer right here within OneDrive, so I can see that content, I can interact with it, I can zoom and play with it. It's really awesome. Of course, I can view PDFs, I can view Office documents, I can view animated GIFs. So we support all of this stuff within OneDrive to make it really easy for you to get to all of your stuff. And that's on the web. But when you're not on the web, I'm going to switch over to Windows. So here, I'm in Windows File Explorer. And you can see I've got all of my same files available in OneDrive integrated right here in Windows File Explorer. One of the things that I want you to note is that those same thumbnails are available here. And again, I don't have apps installed to open all of these things in Windows. But OneDrive Files on Demand brings these cloud thumbnails down to Windows so that I can see my content and I can find my stuff even though I don't have anything installed on the local machine that understands these files. This is really powerful because it means that whether you're working in File Explorer because you're a Windows desktop user, or whether you're working on the web, all of your content is going to look the same. You'll be able to see it and get to it from wherever you are. So one of the things that's really interesting about Files on Demand is that all of my files are visible, but that doesn't mean that they're taking up space. Let me show you what I mean. Right here, I'm looking at my Contoso OneDrive. I'm going to go to Properties because I want to see how big these files are. And so you can see here that the files actually take up I've got like 3 gigabytes of data in my OneDrive. But if you look at the size on disk, hopefully you can read that, that says 0 bytes. So all of these files are taking up no space on my computer right now. This is great in cases when you have an underpowered machine or when you have a lot of content and you want to be able to get to it. But you may wonder then, well, if this is just a cloud thumbnail and the file isn't even on my machine, how's that going to work? Well, what you'll see is that when I double-click on that file, OneDrive will automatically download it on demand and show me that file. This works whether I'm interacting with File Explorer or whether another app is programmatically trying to get to the file. As far as the entire Windows desktop is concerned, all of those files are on my machine all the time. OneDrive is going to work behind the scenes to hydrate those files when they're needed and clean up those files when space is needed. Really, really awesome. You'll also note here these little icons. Sorry, they're very tiny icons on the screen. These blue cloud icons mean that the files are available when you're online. In other words, OneDrive will download them when you need them, but they're not taking up space on your machine. If you see the green check mark here, that file has a green check mark because OneDrive has now cached a local copy because I double-clicked on it to open it. That means the file is going to be available if I go offline. If I plan on going offline and I know I need some files with me, I can right-click on any of the files and I can choose Always Keep on this device. When I choose that, you'll see that the check mark turns green, solid green. That means that the file is now available offline and OneDrive won't clean it up to reclaim space. That way, I can still get everything in the sort of traditional sync model, and I know that that file is going to be available even when I'm not online. So Files on Demand lets me get to not only all of my own files in my individual library, but it also lets me get to files in shared libraries. Here, I'm looking at the retail promotions team. I'm looking at the shared library that goes with that team. And for teams in particular, when you join some team, there may be terabytes of content that you certainly don't want taking up space on your poor laptop when you're traveling. And so in this case, again, all of these files are taking up no space right now on my computer, unless I've opened any of them. This is taking up 0 bytes, even though there's 150 meg in that library. And again, just like in my own library, if I double-click on one of these files, it'll automatically come down. In this case, I can click on this photo. You'll see I choose I want to open it in the Photos app. And then Windows is going to go down. OneDrive will download that file, and then Windows will open it as soon as it's ready. So super easy. If you're a Windows user, you already know how to use Files on Demand. This is good, actually. So you can see this little thing at the bottom. If an app is going and retrieving a file that's independent from something you did, OneDrive will tell you that it's doing a download because you may not be aware, right? Sometimes you may have not very much space and wonder what happened. OneDrive's going to let you know when another app is requesting that a file gets hydrated. So I said anywhere access, and when I say anywhere, I mean anywhere. So I'm going to switch over here to my phone, my iPhone. And here I'm in the OneDrive app on my iPhone, and you can see that I've got access to all of those files right here in my pocket. I can get to all of the files. You can see all of the thumbnails are here also. Actually, I'll turn my phone sideways. There you go, that was better. So I can see all of these files here on my phone, and I'm going to click on that drone, and what you'll see is that even though I'm on my phone, and again, I don't have any app installed that knows how to handle this, I can not only see the file, but I can interact with it the same as I can on the web. So OneDrive connects me with all of those files. You can also see that if I go here to Sites, I can come in here to my retail promotions team, go into Documents, and then see all of the documents available for that team here on my phone. One more thing I wanted to show you is that if you are interested in working on something offline, here I'll go big again. There we go. If you're interested in working on a file offline, you can click a file and you can say make available offline. What that'll do is that OneDrive will download a copy of that file onto my phone so that I can run the OneDrive app and get to it even if I'm not connected to the internet. So there you have it. It's how you can connect to everything. Oh, one other thing. May have noticed the Apple logo on the back of my laptop. All of this stuff, of course, is available on macOS as well. Right here, you can see that I've got all of my files here in my OneDrive. I can click on a file. I can choose to always keep on this device. OneDrive's going to go ahead and change that check mark to green. I can also see thumbnails for all of the files that I have. All of this is available in Mac as well. Just wanted to remind you. So that said, let's go back to the deck. So as you saw, OneDrive gives you a full fidelity web experience. You can get to all of your files, whether they're in your library, other people's libraries, or shared in a team site. There are rich thumbnails available so that you can see all of your content, along with built-in previewers for over 320 file types and growing. Files on Demand lets you work within File Explorer and Finder like you naturally would. Files and folders don't take up any space until they're needed. You can choose to always keep files on the device so that you can get to them offline. And it works for shared libraries so that if you have these large collections of files that you work with, you can get to them from your PC, from your Mac without worrying about space. And of course, on OneDrive Mobile on iOS and Android, sorry, don't have enough time, works on Android phones and tablets as well. You can get to all of your files on the go. And if you're on a tablet, by the way, the app adjusts the tablet. It's not going to be a giant version of the phone app. It'll take advantage of all of the screen real estate. It looks really, really great. And so that's a look at how you can view and edit files from any device in Microsoft 365. Next up, I'll show you how you can share and work together in real time using Microsoft 365 and OneDrive. Let's get out of presentation mode again. Sorry, I'm going to get better at this as the presentation goes on. Promise. How do I get my cursor back here? Where are you? Bottom screen, top screen, right, left. There you go. Okay, so we're going to start with a really simple scenario. I have a file that I just want to share with somebody. I want to make sure that they can open the file, and I don't want them to deal with opening up an account, entering a password, dealing with access denied, or any of that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and select this file, campaign results. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to choose to share. What you'll see is that I have a couple of options to share, but I just want regular, just a link that works for anyone. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that link to the clipboard. Now, to simulate what it looks like for the person at the other end, I'm going to go ahead and open up in an incognito window. This way, there's no cookies, there's no login. This is a completely clean browser window. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that link in. And what you'll see is that once I open the link, it just works. I can go ahead and send this link to anyone using email. I can send it in a text. I can send it using Teams or chat. And when they click on that link, it's going to work. And when they pass it on to somebody else, it's going to work. And if they don't have PowerPoint installed, it's going to work. If they're on the phone, it's going to work. It will just work. It's really, really easy to go share things with people. I just wanted to first point out by saying it is really easy to just select a file, hit share, and send a link that's going to work for anyone. But there are some other options here. I'm going to dive into what those other options are. So this says anyone with the link can edit. And of course, I can decide that I don't want to let the person edit. They get view-only access. But we've got a couple of other options here. So one is I can set an expiration date on the link. So if I'm sending the link to somebody and I don't want that link to work later, for example, I'm sending something to my accountant and it's not going to matter after April 15th because taxes are done, I can say the link expires then and they're going to lose access once April 15th comes around. Second thing I can do is I can set a password on that link. And so if I want to, I can set a password. Now, why would I do this if I can just assign it to their account? Well, one of the reasons why I may want a custom password is that I may have a link that I'm giving out, for example, to speakers at Ignite the Tour. And I'll tell people what the password is, but in time I expect that I may want to give other people the password. A new person decides they're going to be a speaker or they have to give it to somebody else. And so I want to have some control over who can use that link, but I want it to be easy to do it. In other words, the secret password is foo, you can go get in. Custom password will let you do that. It's something we've actually heard from a lot of customers, and so we've added that as an option for securing your links. The other thing you can do is you can choose to block a download. Now, block download's really interesting. What it does is it works the same way. I can click on the link and it'll work. Let me show you. So I'm going to come back here. Let's close this incognito window to guarantee that we're starting fresh. I'm going to go here and open up an incognito window. I'm going to paste in that link. So again, the link works for anyone. So you'll see that the link will open just like it did before. And it's view-only access, so I'm not going to be allowed to go make edits to that file. But because I selected block download, the person who opens this link won't be able to go download the file. You can see here it says you don't have permission to download or print the file. You'll notice that there's no download command in the menu. This is important because I don't want them taking a stale copy and passing it around. I want them to get to the one in the cloud and only the one in the cloud. But you may think, well, but I'm in the browser, right? The browser, the browser has a print command. I can still print it. You're right, I can still print it. We can't stop a browser from letting you print, but we can stop a browser from seeing the content when you try to print. And so the browser will print a blank page because they are not allowed to download this file. Again, boy, I wish we could change all of the browsers, but we can't. And so we can't stop the browser from getting to your content. This is a really, really useful command. It's something that we've added here, again, based on customer requests. Please giving us your feedback. So that's block download. Next up, I'm going to show you another scenario. In this case, what I want to do is I actually want to share the file with a partner of mine. In this case, Larry at Fabricam Airlines. The thing is I do want to make sure that Larry doesn't pass this on to other people because this is something that's kind of confidential. So I'm going to go ahead and change the setting here on this link to say instead of the link working for anyone, the link only works for specific people. In this case, the specific people is Larry. So I've specified Larry here, and I've said I'm going to go ahead and send the link. So I'm going to go ahead and send that mail to Larry. What I've done here, just to make the demo a little bit harder, is I've actually configured it so that the person I'm sharing with, Larry, actually isn't an Office 365 user. He doesn't use Office, he doesn't use Outlook, he doesn't use OneDrive. And so the question is, how's he going to prove that he's Larry? How do I know that this link's only going to work for him if he's not at all in the Microsoft ecosystem? Well, let me show you this. I'm here looking at this mail. Larry gets a mail that says that the link only works for the recipients of this message. And he's going to go ahead and click to open that. And when he opens it, oh, you know what? Sorry, I clicked on the old mail. Let's try that again. This is 0 minutes ago. Is that the correct mail? Okay, that's the correct mail. Sorry about that, was practicing earlier. Nope, that was the one that I sent as part of my previous demo. Just a second. To make sure, sorry about this. Just to make sure I'm getting the right link, I'm just going to copy to the clipboard. That way I can paste it in Larry's account. I don't have to go deal with all of those mails. So Larry gets a link in the mail, and he clicks on that link. And of course, the demo is not working right now. Oh, geez. Okay, hold on. Hold on here. I know what I'm doing. Let's try that again. My apologies. I was actually rehearsing this demo like 10 minutes beforehand, and that means that because I did that, the browser cached the fact that he's Larry. So I'm going to do it in an incognito window. So let's say Larry did it and he didn't do it 5 minutes ago, which is what he did. So I'm going to open this up in an incognito window, and you'll notice that Larry gets a prompt that says, hey, you've received a secure link to this. To verify your identity, we're going to send you a code to larry@fabricamairlines.com. Because keep in mind, this link, it might not be Larry, right? Someone else might have seen his machine, they might have clicked on it, he might have forwarded the mail. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose to send the code. What that's going to do is it's going to send a one-time code to Larry's email address. And so here in Larry's account, you'll see that he got this account verification code. This code is only valid for the next 15 minutes. And it went to Larry at Fabricam Airlines so that we can make sure that he really is Larry. I'm going to paste in the code, and what you'll see is that once OneDrive verifies that that is in fact the code it just sent to Larry, it'll let me into the document. So as you can see, we've made it easy for people to share in a secure way with anyone in the world. Of course, if they're using Microsoft 365 or they have a Microsoft account, they'll be able to sign in and just prove it that way. But if they're not a Microsoft user, they'll get a one-time passcode sent to their email address. They'll prove that they're able to receive that email, and then they'll get access to that file. So sorry for the little snafu there on practicing. Normally practicing is supposed to make these go smoother. But that was a look at how you can share. One of the other things I wanted to show you is that I've gone ahead and shared that with Larry. Let's see here. Yeah, so I've gone ahead and shared that with Larry. And let me go back here and open that again, because I want to show you something else. So again, I clicked on the wrong link. Let me go back and open the correct link. So I'm going to go ahead and open that link, but I want to show you something. I'm going to go to this file and go look at the permissions on the file to see who has access. And what you'll see is that this link that I sent here went to larry@fabricam.com. You also see some of the links that I sent earlier from my previous demo. And so because OneDrive keeps track of who's opened your links, I can see that this link was sent to Larry, and if I want to, I can go ahead and delete this link. In this case here, it's the link that I sent 5 minutes ago to Larry, and so I'm going to delete that one too. And by deleting these links, I've not only made it so that anyone who subsequently gets that link isn't going to have access, I've made it so that people who only had access through that link will no longer have access. And so what happens here is if Larry comes back and tries to open it, he doesn't have access to the file anymore. Because unlike some of the other collaboration solutions out there, when you go delete a link, you mean you don't want the link to work anymore. And so we're not going to leave all of the old permission there. We're going to clean up anyone who got permission through the link so that you can be assured that they don't have access anymore. This is really valuable in cases when you send something and you're like, oh, I fat-fingered the keyboard and I think I sent it to the wrong person. You can go delete the link, create a new link, and send it again. Some of our competitors actually make you delete the file to save yourself from that case. And so we've made it really easy for you to go regenerate a new link to make sure that people have access. So I share to you using the web on OneDrive, but I want to demonstrate to you that you can share from other places. In this case, I'm in Finder on the Mac, and I want to go ahead and share that same file. What you'll see is that I've got that same experience available here within Finder and the same options available to me, even though I'm not running on the OneDrive website. Those same options are also available if I'm working within PowerPoint or Word or Excel on the web. So here, if I go into PowerPoint and I go to share, you can see all of the same options. You can see the same experience. The same thing is true in Windows. The same thing is true on mobile. I don't have time to show that to you, but it's on mobile as well. And so this way, no matter where you are, you're able to get access to all of those options in a no compromise experience. Just because you're on your phone, just because you're on the go, we don't want to hold back options from you from being able to share files with other people. So Office documents. Office documents obviously work super well for collaboration because that's our thing. But I want to show you how you can collaborate on files even if they're not Office documents. In this case, we're going to come back here to this drone image, and one of the things that I want to show you is that I can actually make comments here about this drone. I can go ahead and say, do you think it has enough props? And what happens is that when I make that comment, anyone else who has access to the file can see those same comments. They'll get an email telling them that I've made a comment, and they can come back and we can have a conversation here. And this is cool because, as I mentioned, you can see this preview even if you don't have the app installed. Well, you can also see this preview even if you don't use OneDrive. You can see this preview if you don't have Office installed. You can see this preview if you don't use Office. And so if I send somebody this link, like Larry, for example, he'll be able to see the comments and we'll be able to have a conversation and collaborate even though he's not a user. And so it's a really powerful way to collaborate, and another example of how Microsoft 365 helps you work with others even if they're not Microsoft 365 users. Finally, I want to show you one other thing. Here in my files list, you can see this column called activity. What we do is that as you work on your files, occasionally, if something happens recently that is relevant, we're going to show you a little blurb that says something happened on that file. That way, as you're getting your work done, you may not have noticed that something important happened, and so you can see that. You can also see here in the details pane a running log of all of the different things that have been happening around your files, so that again, you can catch up with what's been happening. It's a good way to just see what's going on. And so that's a look at how Microsoft 365 makes it really easy to share and work together. Super easy to share using links that work for anyone. You can block downloads so that the stuff in the cloud stays in the cloud. You can use password protected links to manage how resharing happens. You can use specific people links to make sure that only the person who wants it can get it. And again, Microsoft 365 is the only enterprise-class collaboration platform that supports this kind of super easy sharing. You can share directly from File Explorer and Finder. So not only does OneDrive bring all of those files to you with files on demand, but it lets you share those files super, super easily. Wow, there's one other, sorry, there's so much stuff here. There's a whole nother demo I didn't show you, holy cow. So let's say we are working on a job description. Me and my colleague Lydia are working on a job description here in Word. And you can see I can open this up and I can go work on this. I happen to have Word on this computer, but I can work in Word Online whether I have Word installed on my computer or not. And in this case, I want to know, is this really right? In this case, I'm going to select this file, choose a new comment, and I'm going to say, I'm going to @mention Grady and say Grady is headquartered a Word, right? And I can go ahead and mention him. And what that will do is it will send Grady an email saying that he was mentioned in a document. And when he clicks that email, that deep link will bring him right back into this document, into this view, so that he can see the comment I made, which is really, really awesome. Now, let's say I want to go ahead and send another comment. I'm going to show you something else. So I'm going to send a comment to my colleague, Lydia, that I'm working with. So I'm going to send that to Lydia. And in this case, actually, hold on. Let's see this. Lydia wasn't the one I was going to share with. Man, again, note, don't practice things beforehand when they require things to be set up ahead of time. And so I'm going to go ahead and share with, let's say, Alex. Does he have permission? So in this case, I'm mentioning Alex, and because Alex doesn't have permission to this file, you'll see that Office detects this and actually says, hey, Alex doesn't have access, do you want to grant him access? So I can go ahead and say, yeah, I want to share and notify him. Now, two things are going to happen. One is, Office is going to make sure that Alex has access to this file, so I don't get embarrassed by him getting a broken link that says I mentioned him. But second of all, he's not going to get two mails. He's not going to get a mail that says, Eugene shared a file, and then another one saying, Eugene commented. He's just going to get one thing that says, hey, Eugene mentioned you in a document, and we know that he knows he has access because he's going to click on it, and it's going to work. Now, we do this because we don't want people to accidentally share files by just mentioning people who aren't supposed to have access. And so we add this extra check that respects all of the policies in your organization around who's allowed to share, so that of course, if I wasn't allowed to share with Alex, I would get the same message I would get anywhere else that says you're not allowed because of policy. And so @mentions make it really easy to bring people into the document. Those people actually get picked automatically based on the Microsoft graph, so that as I start typing, it'll find the right people. I can grant access to people automatically if they don't already have access. I can also comment on other file types like you saw with the drone so that I can collaborate with anyone, whether they use Office or not. And then of course our activity indicators on OneDrive make it easy for you to see what's new with your shared files so that you have an idea of important things to get onto next. So that's a look, sharing and working together in real time. Next, we're going to walk through how Microsoft 365 makes it easy to organize files and coordinate workflows. And again, I'm going to go back to my cursor. See, I'm getting faster at this. That only took a few seconds. I'm going to go back here, and for this demo, we're going to go into the retail promotion site. So this is a site that my team uses to go work together on documents. And in this case, there's a lot of documents here. One of the things I want to show you is that, typically when people make their documents, it's kind of a mess. They're just checking in all kinds of things. They use the wrong logo. They miss important fields. And so what I want to show you is, in this case, in the new menu, you can see here this doesn't look like the regular new menu, right? You can see that there's this other template here. Now that's because I can go ahead and choose to add a template, select a file, and add templates to the new menu so that I can have other document types there. In this case, I've unchecked the blank Word document because I don't want anyone doing a blank Word document. Really no one ever uses a form or Excel or a link either, so I can uncheck those. And I can decide here, a lot more people do PowerPoint presentations. I can drag and drop and reorder these things in the new menu to present them the way I want. I also have the ability, if I have multiple content types in the document library, to set the content type of each of these templates. And once I hit save, what you'll see is that the new menu is now configured exactly the way I wanted. Those other options aren't there. The PowerPoint presentation shows up where it's supposed to. This is just another way that we can make it easy for your teams to work together in a shared library and get their work done in ways that align with best practices in your organization. So another thing I want to show you is, you may have noticed there's all this metadata here, right? This isn't stuff that would normally be in a document library. You can see, of course, there's modified date, file name, but there are things like the product line, like the owner. And this metadata makes it easier for us to manage all of our data and present it in a way that makes sense to the team. But we can make it a lot better. Let me show you how. I really want to focus on files that aren't customer ready. And there's a customer ready column here that says yes or no, but it's a little bit hard to see. So I'm going to go ahead and go to column settings and choose to format this column. And you'll see that we've added these easy formatters so that I can choose to fill the background colors, and it will now configure that column based on the value inside the column. Of course, I can go change the colors however I want. I can change yes to be different colors if I want to, but you can see that it's red and green. And so now it's easier to see what things are customer ready and what things aren't. But I also want to know who's the owner who isn't ready. And this owner column over here is too far. So I'm going to go drag this over here and reposition that column so that it's easier to see immediately who the owner is of that file. I can reposition the column. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and save that view so that other people who come to the library will see it in this view. I can also go ahead and filter to find things I want. And in this case, you'll notice that the customer ready column is here in the filters tab, but not all the other columns are. Why is that? Well, you can customize the tab to include whichever filter criteria you want. And so in this case, if I wanted customer ready to be there and it wasn't there, all I have to do is select the column, choose filter by, course, I can filter directly from the column, but I can also choose to pin it to the filters pane, which causes it to show up in the filters pane if that's a common way that people filter their data. And so I can filter to no, and then you can see it shows me only no. Another way to make it easy to find this stuff is I can select the column and choose to group by customer ready. And in this case, you can see that all of the customer ready items are now grouped here as no, and all the ones that are yes are grouped as yes. That way, it's easy for the team to find it. These document libraries make it really easy for you to get to your stuff by taking metadata and customizing the presentation so that your team can see the data in exactly the way they need to see it. One of the other things I want to show you, let me go save this view here, because I've grouped it. You notice this thing kind of annoys me, right? The file name doesn't quite fit. There's some ... here. Well, let me show you something else. So I can now resize the folder, which is, resize the column, but you'll see that in the documents view, the little asterisk appeared, because we now track column sizes as part of the data in a view. So that when I go ahead and save this view, anyone who comes to the library will now see it with a new layout, including that wider name column, so that they can see it the way they want. Doesn't seem like that big a thing, but this is the kind of thing that just gives a little bit of time back to everyone on your team when they're working with their stuff. And so this is one of the ways, again, that the customization of those libraries makes it easy for you to work together with your team. I want to make sure that people aren't forgetting about these important target delivery dates. And so I'm going to go ahead and select flow. And if any of you have ever played with flow, you know creating a flow is something that's not a trivial thing for some people to do. Well, you'll notice here that there's this option that says set a reminder. Now, I didn't build this, nor did anybody else set this up in the library. Because there is a date column in this library, SharePoint automatically adds this set a reminder option. I can choose to set a reminder based on target delivery, and this is a built-in flow that's available for any library that contains a date column. If there were multiple date columns, I could choose which one. And in this case, I'm going to say, you know what, like 7 days in advance, remind me. And now what will happen is that for anything there that has a delivery date that's coming within 7 days, I'm going to get an email saying, hey, this delivery date is approaching, and I can go do something about that. And again, I can go customize that flow or look at it to understand how it was built, but this way, we've seen it as a really common task for people to do, and so we're trying to simplify it by putting automatic flows in based on the data types whenever it seems like it's going to apply. That's a document library. So I want to show you something else. So in this promotion ideas library, we actually have a metadata column, which is store type, which is required. And you'll see that it's highlighted here so that I know it's required. I can easily click on it and go update that metadata to go populate the things I need. But sometimes that might not be available. That might not be visible. For example, if I was in a view that didn't include the store type column, how would I know it was missing metadata? If it was buried in a folder somewhere in this library, how would I ever find that? Well, we've made that easier too with a files that need attention view. This view recursively goes through the entire library and brings forward everything that has missing metadata so that I can find the things I need, even if my view isn't show it, even if it's buried inside a folder. It makes it really easy for me to get to the stuff I need to fix. And another way we've made things easier is I can now select multiple items, choose that, and then bulk edit and say all of these are company-owned stores. And then you'll see it'll update all of those items in one shot so that I don't have to go and do it one by one. It's another time saver. So let me switch now back to my phone. Because remember, you can do this stuff from anywhere. So I'm going to go to the promotion ideas library here, and I have a promotion idea. So I'm going to hit that scan button at the bottom. That scan button lets me go capture content whenever I want. I wrote down a really detailed plan for better promotion ideas. I'm going to take a picture of it. And you'll see that because of our integration with Office Lens, that picture, let me go back here, you'll see that OneDrive automatically detects borders on that and cleans up the image so that it's right side up, even though I wasn't really coming at it from a clean angle. But there was required metadata in this library. And so you'll see when I hit done, in addition to asking me for a file name, it actually asked me to fill in the metadata. You can see here a store type is here, and I have to choose that, yeah, in this case, this is a non-company owned store, and then I can go ahead, choose a name, and save that file. So again, we're making it really easy for you to get to your content and collect data even on the go by connecting you with all of these libraries from your phone, from iOS and Android, as well as from the web. So that was a look at how we've made it easy. Did I miss any other demos here? I think that was everything. So that's how we've made it easy to organize and collect data around your files. You can customize the new menu so that people who land in your library are able to get to what they want and create documents that look the way you want. It lets you standardize on things like company formatting, on necessary fields. We've made it easy for you to organize with metadata. You can add custom columns. We have column formatters that let you configure your stuff to look the way you want. You can group, sort, and filter. You can do bulk edits, and you can save views to make them available to your whole team. We've added the attention view so that you can find missing metadata no matter where it lives in your library. And we've added built-in flows for common tasks based on the kind of data you have. Actually, in the next talk, I'll walk through this other flow here, which is a request access flow. And that's a look at how you can organize flows and coordinate workflows with Microsoft 365. And so I've shown you a lot of the ways that Office 365 lets you and your team collaborate effectively. I want to show you how we're using intelligence to make it easy for you to find the files that matter the most. So I'm going to come back here and start in office.com. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with office.com, office.com is the place where you can start to get anything done. You can see pointers here to all of your apps, so that if you can't remember any URL, you can certainly remember Office, type it into any text box, you'll end up here. And one of the things you'll see is that this set of recommended documents here, these big tiles. These are documents that the Microsoft Graph has determined I am most likely to want to go open next. This is based on either my pattern of usage, based on the people I'm working with, based on meetings I have coming up. And so this is one way that we've made it easier for you to get to stuff, that there's a chance here that the thing I want to work on is sitting right here and available to me the next time I want to get to it. I can also see below that a list of recent files that I've worked on so that I can get back to what I wanted to do. Once I've done the work of finding it, like yesterday, I shouldn't have to find it again today. And so recent brings it forward. If there's a file that I really want to work on and I don't want to lose track of it, I can go ahead and pin it. And then what you'll see is that here in the list of pinned items, I can see everything I wanted to pin, and you'll see that it stays on top because I've pinned it. And I can unpin it later on when I don't need it there anymore. You can also see that there's this view called Discover. Now what Discover is Discover is a set of documents that I may not even have necessarily seen, but I have access to. And the Microsoft Graph believes that they are relevant to my work. And so I can go see more in OneDrive. Office.com gives me a preview of the set of things I have. And here you can see all of the files that are really interesting to me and might be worth me looking at, either because colleagues I work with have been looking at them or working on them, or because people have been talking about them in conversations that I'm involved in and I haven't looked at them yet. And again, Discover is all about getting work done when you've got a few spare moments or when you actually want to make sure that you haven't missed anything important. And so I want to show you that even on mobile, I clicked on the file, on the Shared tab on the bottom, and click on the Discover tab up top, and you'll see that same set of documents is now available to me on my mobile device, so that whether I'm on my phone or on my tablet and I'm on the go, whether you're waiting for the train to arrive or waiting for something to compile, this gives you a chance to say, hey, is this maybe something useful that I wanted to look at? And so we wanted to bring it to you on mobile as well, so that you can get to it when you're on the go, because we recognize that when you've got some time on your hands, you may not be looking at a computer. So that's how we've made it easy to just find things that you might need by predicting what you need. But there are other cases when you want to explicitly search for something. Back in Orlando, when we did Ignite before, I went to dinner, and there was a receipt that I forgot to turn in an expense report for. And so it was something about sushi, but I don't remember the name of the restaurant or anything like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and search for sushi. What you'll see is that it found this receipt. And it found this receipt, and you'll see that there's some tagged metadata here that says it was called kabuki sushi. But what's interesting is I didn't enter that metadata. That was actually just written on the receipt that I took a photo of, And you'll see that by putting things into our intelligent cloud, we're going to apply machine learning to that to go find all of the data that might be relevant to you so that you can find it later on. In this case, all I had to do was type sushi, and good thing the word sushi was somewhere on the receipt so that I could go find it. But I didn't have to do any work to go find this. It's really powerful, and it's an awesome way to just go find things that you might not have found otherwise. And so that machine intelligence applies not only to words that are written in photos, but it applies to other things. And so, I've been working on a project where I need to just find some photos of things in the outdoors, and I'm just gonna type outdoor. And again, I'm in Office 365, just typing outdoor in general. And I'm like, no, I'm looking for a file. So I'm going to switch to files, and in particular, I want to find photos, and so I can filter down to photos. And what you'll find is it brought up a set of photos, and the funny thing is these photos, like this photo is called Blossom Engage 2. There's no metadata here at all, but because I put it into OneDrive, we were able to determine that this, in fact, is probably a photo of the outdoors, and so we're going to return this when I query for the word outdoor, even though that isn't metadata, she's not wearing a shirt that says outdoor on it. And so again, we're trying to make it really easy for you to find your stuff. And this is another example of how intelligence in Microsoft 365 makes stuff easier when all you're doing is putting your files into a safe place to start with. And so that place that is safe and protected is also something that's backed by our intelligence services so that it's easy to find your stuff and get your work done. So we saw that recommended brings forward files you might be interested in. You can search for images based on text in the images or based on content in the images, in this case, the word outdoor. And I showed you how Discover makes it easy for you to find things on the desktop or on your phone so that you can get to interesting things and get caught up on things that might be relevant to your job. And so that's finding files that matter the most. But like I mentioned, you get all these benefits by just putting your files into somewhere safe. And so I want to talk a little bit about what it is that makes the files so safe in Microsoft 365. And to do that, I'm going to go through just a couple of the features that help you do that. So for one is, I've been showing you here on the Windows desktop that all these files are stored in OneDrive. And of course, that's great, but you might be thinking, but my users aren't putting their things in OneDrive. They forget, they don't know how. So I want to show you here, there's a prompt here, and you'll see it says your IT department wants to protect your folders. So the first time I signed in, I actually got a pop-up prompt telling me this. I ignored it on purpose so that it would stick around here. And so what happens is, when I click on protect these folders, what it's gonna do is say, hey, your IT department wants you to protect your folders. In this case, my local desktop pictures and documents folder. See, you can see I screwed up. I actually have something in my local pictures folder, right? That stuff's gone if I drop this laptop. So what this feature does is it takes those built-in Windows folders, your desktop folder, your pictures folder, your documents folder. These are the places where people most often lose things because they're working on something and they forgot to put it in the cloud and they can't get to it later on. They drop their laptop in the pool and all their data's gone. And so once I say start protection, what this is gonna do is it's gonna remap all of these folders to point to OneDrive. All the content that's already in them is still gonna be there, and OneDrive will start syncing it in the cloud so that it's backed up and I have access to it no matter where I go. And then from now on, I can just work in Windows the way I normally did. I can keep on choosing the documents folder, but it's now actually going to be pointing at OneDrive, and all my stuff's going to be there. You can configure this by policy to tell your employees to go do this. And of course, for home users, they'll also get a prompt saying, hey, your stuff isn't safe and not backed up. Are you sure you don't want to put it in OneDrive? And so known folder move makes it really easy to get to your stuff and keep all of it safe. Another way we keep things safe is, of course we've got a recycle bin, so that if I delete something, I can go back to the recycle bin and go find it. This is useful because no matter where I deleted it from, I can get to it from the recycle bin here. And so even if I was like, oh no, I deleted that file, I can't believe I needed it, I can be on my phone, go to the recycle bin and go find it because it was in OneDrive. The other thing that OneDrive lets you do is it lets you go back in time. I can select a file and go to version history, and you can see here all of the different versions of the file that we've been working on together. And so if I say, oh, you know what? I deleted a bunch, Alex deleted some slides on September 21st that I really needed. I can go click on that and OneDrive will give me a copy of the file as it looked on September 21st so I can find out what data did I miss. So not only are we keep protecting you against deletions, we're protecting you against accidental edits that you might not have intended. And again, you don't have to do anything for version history to work, you just get it as part of putting your stuff into our cloud. But sometimes mistakes aren't really our fault. Sometimes, for example, malware may come in and infect your computer. One of the things that we've built to make it easier to deal with those cases is files restore. I'm manually going here to restore my OneDrive, but if we detect that a large number of files were deleted or modified in a way that was unusual for your usage patterns, we'll actually send you a mail and say, something fishy is going on, you may want to take a look at your OneDrive. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select a date. And you'll see that it shows me a summary of the activity that have happened over the last couple days. And if there was a malware attack, for example, there might be a particular date, like the 7th, where there's this huge spike that says, oh my God, if everything got touched, everything got encrypted. I can now pick that date. I can see what happened. Now, in this case, it's fine. This is my colleagues working on my files. But if I said, you know what? No, I actually want to go back to 319, and I say restore, this is going to take all of that content in my OneDrive and bring it back to the way it was on March 19th, so that if I got infected by malware afterwards and I know that that happened, I can roll the entire thing back and still be protected and get all of my files there. This feature also coordinates with the Windows malware detection feature, so that if Windows has detected malware and reported it, Windows and OneDrive will work together to make sure that we don't restore the files until your Windows PC says it is clear of malware. We don't want to restore the files only to have them get infected again. And so files restore is really powerful. It's something that's available today in OneDrive, and it's something that we're working on bringing to shared libraries as well, so that when you're working together with your team and disaster happens, you have a way to go back and recover that data as well. And so that's just like two of the ways that we make it really easy for you to protect your stuff and get back to it. One of the other things that I want to walk through, let's skip through that. So I showed you known folder move, which makes it easy to get your stuff in the cloud. Showed you files restore. I also want to walk you through some of the ways that you can protect your content by configuring your system to only let sharing happen when it's supposed to happen. We have a huge set of controls for external sharing. You can control who can share, you can control what can be shared, you can control which users can be shared with and how they can be used. The idea behind these controls is that we want your data to be safe and we want your people to be productive. So we want to help you find the right balance between enabling people to work together and blocking people from making mistakes or sharing your data outside. For example, by default, everything can be shared anywhere. As you just saw, I can get a link that works for anyone. But I can also configure my organization to say that only specific people are allowed to share. For example, people who've gone through a certain kind of training about sharing responsibly. I can also turn off sharing altogether. There may be organizations that say, no, there's never a need to share anything outside of my org. I can also control at the other end who can be shared with. Of course, by default, I can share with anyone in the world. And as I showed you with the one-time passcode, you can share with anyone, whether they're using Microsoft or not. I can also choose to only share with authenticated users. This means I can share with people, but they can't share to other people by passing the link around. In some cases, organizations say this is the behavior that we want. I can block sharing with specific domains. For example, competitors, I might say, nope, that's never a good case, so don't do that. I can also decide that I want to allow only certain domains. If there's only a handful of partners that you work with, you can say sharing is only allowed if the email address matches one of those domains. I can even configure to share with only specific people in the world by populating my directory ahead of time with only the people who are allowed to be shared with and saying you can only share with people if I've previously said that they're okay. So that's a quick look at how I can control who can be shared with. I can also control sharing based on content. By default, I can share externally from anywhere, whether it's in my library or in a shared library, but I can choose to block files that are sensitive. You can configure a DLP policy with certain characteristics, for example, credit card numbers or code names for your products, and if Microsoft 365 detects one of those things in the file, it will block people from sharing it externally, and if it's already been shared externally, it'll block those people from being able to access those files. I can also configure it so that OneDrive, you can't share from your individual OneDrive, but you can share from shared libraries. And finally, I can configure specific libraries to enable or disable sharing. In this case, the finance team never works outside of the company. Their content should never be shared outside, but the sales team always works with people outside, and so it's okay to share from there. And finally, I can configure how shareable links can be used. I can require expiration. So I showed you that expiration feature. I can mandate that those links expire at a particular time. And then users can shorten the expiration date, but they can't lengthen it. So I can set a cap on how that works. I can also choose what the default is when I'm sharing. I showed you that I hit share and I got a link that worked for anyone in the world, but you can change that default. For example, inside Microsoft, if I'm not thinking about it and I just say copy link, I'm going to get a link that only works for Microsoft employees. I can change it to work outside if I want to, but to avoid accidental mistakes, that's not the default. So yeah, I can default to internally shareable links. Users can, of course, change settings, but now they're explicitly doing it. This minimizes the chances of people making mistakes. And of course, I can default to links that only work for specific people if that makes the most sense for my organization. You saw how you can choose whether people can view or edit your content. I can default to either view or edit. Again, it's up to you to configure things the way you want. That's a brief look at some of the controls we have. We don't expect everyone to use all these controls, but I just want to point out there's a lot of flexibility here to really match Microsoft 365's behavior with your org's best practices. And so that was, a bit of a whirlwind tour of how Microsoft 365 makes it easy to work together on files and collaborate. There's a bunch of great content on YouTube, other sessions from Ignite Orlando. Please watch them if you're interested in more of this. Whoa. Wow. There's just one other slide, but it was actually kind of important. That was hilarious, but it was good timing because the presentation's largely over. There's one other thing I want to call out before you go. Don't forget, please follow me if you want to, but I do want to ask one favor. Before you leave the room, please go fill out an evaluation. Your feedback is super important to us. The features we build all come from feedback from the community. It only takes a few seconds. I really hope that this was a valuable session for you. We love getting a chance to come out here and do this, and so please just let us know if you want us to keep doing this kind of stuff, that this was useful, because it's great, and we take the feedback all the time. In fact, the content of this session has been evolving from the previous Ignite Tour sessions based on feedback. And so again, we're working to constantly improve not just the product, but how we present it to you and the things that we talk about. So please, if you could fill that out before you go. I'm going to be in the auditorium talking about architecting teamwork next, but thanks so much for coming out here. Enjoy the rest of the conference if I don't see you otherwise.